Nvidia's 70 class of GPUs, synonymous the world over as cards that get the job done. A 40 gun frigate of the line with the likes of the 4070, 3070, 2070, even the 1070. But you can go even lower than that and still find a card that even in 2024 is still supported by the Team Green Giant. Yes, we have the now humble GTX970, and guess what? Sink or swim, we're going to throw it in at the deep end. I hope you enjoy the video. My name's Andy and this is Andy's Tech. And yes, the GTX 970. She's a bit of an old girl now, and it's been a couple of years since we took a proper look at this card. We did actually have it in the system for our first flip up challenge, but it was still performing okay-ish a couple of years ago. AAA titles were starting to struggle, but still a perfectly acceptable esports card. So what can it do 2 years on? Is it due for retirement? It is still supported by Nvidia, so you are getting the latest driver package, and it can be picked up for a song these days between £30 to £40, maybe £50 if you're looking for a really nice boxed model. So it's around the RX 480, RX 570 price range. Obviously those cards aren't supported by AMD anymore, so you are getting the features supplied with Nvidia's latest drivers. So what have we got? The GTX 970 was released in September 2014. It is a Maxwell card. There's 4 questionable gigabytes of GDDR5. It does have 3.5 gigabytes, and then 0.5 gigabytes is like fast access memory or something like that. I don't completely understand it, but I don't have to. There's a memory bus of 256 bits. I know, we were absolutely spoiled back then, weren't we? Look at the 4070 now, it has a 128-bit bus. The card supports DirectX 12 at a feature level of 12.1. It's quite a power-hungry card, 150 watts of the power draw. Obviously it is a 9th gen card, so you can't really undervolt it like you can 10 series and above. The bus is PCI 3.0X times 16. I know, who would have thought as well, and obviously as mentioned still supported by the latest Nvidia drivers. So our test system today is this little chap I brought a few weeks back. It's an Alienware Aurora R7 sporting an i7-8700, 6 cores, 12 threads, and is around the performance of an i5-10400F or Ryzen 3600. Why go for this? Well, it's probably the most you're going to pair with a GTX 970 in this day and age. There's 32 gigabytes of 2666 megahertz RAM in dual channel. All the games tested today are on my 2 terabyte Samsung Gen 4 NVMe SSD, but it's obviously running in Gen 3 in this system. Apart from that, there's a 500 watt power supply, which is more than enough for one of these cards, assuming it's a quality one. Don't use a bomb, guys. Make sure it's at least bronze rated, preferably gold, and you won't run into any trouble. So that's enough for me. I think it's about time to roll the benchmarks. So first up, and I've not gone easy today on our little GTX 970. Now there's going to be no Apex Legends or Valorant or Minecraft, all titles that we know that this card can run. But I have thrown Fortnite in here as I think it's kind of the perfect use case for this card these days. So 1080p low with TSR low, the quality set to balanced. Far view distance, god that was a mouthful, we achieved an average of 127 FPS with 0.1% of 91 and respectable for Fortnite 0.1% of 30. Now the little i7 is a great little chip here as well to pair with these lower end cards, and that's kind of why I've gone with it today, purely because, you know, there's no point me testing this card out with you know, latest Ryzen 9 you know, like crispy, because it's just not, it's not reality. So anyway, Fortnite, you know, you've got 128 capped, nice experience here, perfect use case for this card. So we'll move on, and the next title I'm going to test today is Mana Lords. Again, it's quite demanding. It is a title that is still in development. 1080p medium settings with FSR set to balanced. We achieved an average of 61, 1% of 41 and 0.1% of 4. Now the 0.1%, I know this does like modern hardware in terms of CPUs and stuff like that and RAM. So there was occasionally a little blip, which is why it's represented there. But you could certainly play Mana Lords like this. I mean, I could quite happily play Mana Lords at 30 FPS capped. So you could probably get away with turning the settings up to high. But then you're sort of risking running out of VRAM. So next up, and we have Forza Motorsport. 1080p low with FSR set to balanced, and again another average 60 FPS experience. At a push we were flickering between 59 and 60 at one point, but it's 60, so we'll call it that. 1% of 33 and 0.1% of 14. Now the FSR implementation in Forza Motorsport isn't great, and when you start turning it down to balanced or performance, you can notice some real shimmering around the cars, which kind of isn't great when you're trying to race competitively. But you could have loads of fun like this, and it is a great game. So it's still hanging in there with Forza. Cyberpunk next, AAA title from a few years ago, but still very relevant. In-game benchmark, 1080p, low settings with FSR set to balanced again. FSR is going to be a thing with this card. You know, we are going to have to use some upscaling, or cheating should I say. Average 51 FPS, 0.1% of 35, 0.1% of 22. To be honest, it's a really acceptable little basic experience for Cyberpunk, and you know, kind of the same FPS as you would get with an RX 580, RX 480, something like that. And you know, they're all about the same price now, but obviously the AMD cards aren't supported anymore by drivers. Frostpunk 2 next, a new release, a game I'm loving at the minute. 1080p low settings, FSR set to quality. We achieved an average of 44, 1% of 15, 0.1% of 1. Now this is where this card is going to start to struggle as we throw these more demanding newer release titles at it. It is quite a brutal game to run, Frostpunk 2. There's a lot going on, and this is only a small scale city. I've played about half an hour into this level. It does get pretty complex and complicated, but again, it's a city builder game, so you could cap the game to 30 FPS and you would still have a very enjoyable experience. At least it would get you off the ground and you could dip your toe into titles like this. Some esports, or slightly more demanding than esports, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, soon to be replaced with Black Ops, but it's still the current title. 1080p basic settings, FSR 3.0 set to balance. We achieved a nice average of 80 FPS, 1% of 60 and 0.1% of 41. I really enjoy the Call of Duty titles. They're pretty forgiving on older cards and older hardware like this. I mean, look at the little system we tested in the last video with a 4-core i5. You know, put up a fairly good fight. Will it be the case for the next release? I think they've changed the engine slightly, so it is looking like it's going to be a bit more demanding. So, Star Wars Outlaws next, a game I've been having a little go at. A bit on the fence with it really, but 1080p low, FSR 3 set to balanced. We had an average of 45 FPS, 1% to 26, 0.1% questionable. Now again, this is a title as well that doesn't like the implementation of FSR. There's a lot of shimmering around it. You know, they haven't done the best job, and you could really feel the 45 FPS in this game. It's not a game I would cap to 30. You know, you want to be playing this with a solid 60. So it's not really something I could recommend for the little GTX970. But we are on the game, we are playing it. You know, this is a £30 graphics card these days, so that is quite impressive. Star Wars Outlaws is a new release title. You know, it's one of the latest titles out. And it just goes to show that you can play this with sort of like a, you know, last gen console experience. So last up, we have The Last of Us Remastered. 1080p, FSR 3 set to balance. Now I did play this on release. I did a minimum requirements for this game, and this is the minimum required card. We have seen some progress with The Last of Us. It's smoothened out a bit with a few updates and patches, and it does run a lot more better now than it did on release. Average of 38 FPS, 1% of 22, 0.1% of 1. Again, that was mainly through cutscenes. I do like to play through this university scene as it has a mix of outdoor, indoor, couple of cutscenes, few explosions, and it tends to give a decent representation of the game in whole. So again, it's, you know, could I play The Last of Us like this? I mean, I am a budget gamer, but I wouldn't really recommend it. You know, this card is really suitable for lighter titles, Fortnite, COD, etc. like that. But we are still playing the game, so I'll call that a pass. So, the GTX 970, is it still a viable budget option in 2024? I mean, I think so. There's no such thing as a bad graphics card, just a bad use case. And I mean, something like this is still going to walk all over like a GTX 1650. I mean, obviously there's additional power requirements over that card. There are other options, you know, like I mentioned before, you can pick up a RX 580 or RX 480 for around the £50-60 mark, slightly more I know, over the 40-ish sort of pounds they're going for on eBay. Like, we just have a look now on the screen. I mean, about £30 on a real lucky auction, about £50 on a buy now. Yeah, I mean, it's still supported by drivers. I mean, certainly any kind of esports title, you know, like Apex Legends, Fortnite, Minecraft, Valorant, GTA 5, even some of the last gen AAA titles, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2, are all going to run completely fine on a card like this. I mean, obviously there are better options, you know, the 1660 Ti, 1660 Super. Again, ever more attractive in price. They're around £80 at the moment to £100, and will continue to fall. You know, yes, there's going to be someone that tells me, you know, yeah, it's a dead card. You know, why would you recommend this? You know, I'm not recommending this card. I'm just putting it through its paces, you know, just to show what it can do if you happen to come across one. And I mean, for £35, you know, it can still perform adequately, I think, in my opinion. You know, we can play Cyberpunk, albeit at low settings, you know, Last of Us, with a sort of last gen console experience. So that's the GTX 970, still just about hanging on in there, but thank you for watching the video. Take care as always, like and subscribe if you haven't done. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. God bless, take care, and enjoy the ride.